Been a long time. We shouldn't have left you. Started dope beat to step two, step
One.
two.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Still Talk with my ex. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Ariel.
We're back.
We're
We've been gone for a
back.
back like we never left, guys. We're super excited to be back with you all. We took a couple of weeks off. I've been doing an insane amount of traveling. Ariel's been working hard on some other things, and we are so fortunate and feel blessed to be back in the groove, back on your screens. We appreciate you for your patience, and of course, it's just happy to be today in alive. So Ariel, I'm super excited. I know you are as well too. We got some good topics for you all today. Y'all know how we are. We always talk through life. Anything that kind of comes up, there can be something that I think about. I'm like, Ariel, what do you think about this? And we just kind of talk about it, have a very transparent conversation. So we are super excited to really just continue that on today. So today, y'all know we started with all of the, okay, Cleopatra, she's doing the whole, wait, what is that, Vogue? Yes, Vogue. She's doing the whole Vogue thing. Like, remember, guys, we started all talking about sort of the fundamentals of marriage, and had several series of where we have just been dedicated to giving you all tools in the dating scene. It can be kind of awkward. It can just be kind of difficult trying to navigate yourself through, particularly with all kinds of ideas and people kind of trying to funnel through and live vicariously through you. And so we still have that same theme going on because we identify, we get it, right? It's not this ain't our first time at the rodeo. So today we'll be talking about, what would life look like if marriage wasn't in the cards for you? If you are someone like me who, holds marriage to its highest regard, and you want to be married one day, could you be willing to explore a possibility of what your life would look like if you were not married? I think that's a pretty it's a loaded question, Ariel.
It is. It is. It's definitely one where you have to kind of like take a deep breath, like, okay, all right.
Yeah. And I think the reason why, guys, it's such a loaded question is because marriage is tied to sort of the value placement on your life, like being a parent, being a father, having a good job. These are all labels of identification, and we identify this with worth. And so I think kind of reconfiguring that is nuance, right? If you poll if you poll women, you probably see that over half of women, want to be married. And then there's a swath of women who may say, you know what, I'm good. If it happens, if it happens, if it doesn't, if it doesn't. Now that's all age. That's all age demographics, not millennial women, because I think millennial women have a different view on marriage, just like millennial men do. Yeah. So I think, yeah. So I think one of the things that is super important, Ariel, is what would life look like with that question, in terms of just, I feel like a lot would go into that. I don't feel like it would be a decision that I made. I feel like it would be a circumstance that I had to adjust to if I wasn't willing to compromise, if I felt like I didn't find the right person, or if I just didn't want to be married.
Yeah. I think like that's a whole lot of information to take and actually just kind of breathe through. That's one question that if I'm being transparent, it's one question that I'm actually working through in therapy, like what, and I think and having a conversation with my therapist, and the answers that I'm coming to, because it was the question that she posed was more so like, would you be okay if long term you weren't married? And I think my answer that I gave during that time, sometime last year when we were exploring it, was more so of in the space that I am in right now, of embracing my singlehood, of finding myself, of exploring, getting over mental blocks and triggers and things like that have happened in my life. I'm okay with being single at this moment. Again, I'm single by choice, as we like to notate on the show. But I think the bigger question that you just posed of like, okay, well, what's the plan if you don't? I think one thing to note in that process of of, okay, what if you don't get married, is that marriage is not the end all be all. There are other ways to find fulfillment and honestly, fulfillment in your purpose. Sometimes women that I know find purpose in being married and having kids, and that's okay. But sitting in this space of singleness, what I am learning is that there are multiple facets of purpose. And so being married, having kids, if that's your heart's desire, that's okay. But even if it does not happen, your life is still fulfilling and you're not a failure, or you don't have to feel as though you're cast aside just because societal norms tell you that you don't know the joys of living until you've been married and until you've had kids. Like, that's not true. Like, you can actually have fulfillment through travel. You can actually have fulfillment through helping others. And who's to say that you won't see parenthood or motherhood by way of adoption, by fostering kids, by actually working with a foundation to actually assist in children that they seek to help. So I think that there are a lot of ways to still seek fulfillment. I think for me personally, if marriage is off of the table for me, I think that there will be a space that I would need to have to grieve the loss of what I thought my life would look like. And I think that's normal and that's natural and that's okay, especially growing up in our culture of the prince finds the princess and they all lived happily ever after, and playing with baby dolls for like the first half of my life, and being told these fantasy fairy tale stories. Like, there's a part of that is kind of embedded in my psyche, and so I would have to go and really mourn that part of me, and then get back to like, okay, so where do I see purpose for me? And actually consulting with the Lord and saying, where do you see purpose for me as well? And figuring out, okay, well, how do we maneuver to purpose that way? And at the same time, also thinking about the possibilities of what would it look like to have children? Because it doesn't mean that I still can't. It just means that I'm not married. And that's a whole nother thought process. I would prefer to be married to have children, because having children is definitely a team effort. My mother had a village as she was raising me, and I would want, the same, if not more, for children that I would raise. But at the same time, if that is something that I desire and marriage is just not there, then, there are plenty of foster kids who need home. There are plenty of homes. There's plenty of children in the system already. So I could actually look into that. And I mean, the likes of like Charlize Theron and Sandra Bullock and so many others are adopting kids with substantial salaries and being able to still mother and parent. So yeah, I think that's what that would look like for me. What about you?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for being so transparent. You guys know that's what we do here best. We always try to give you all our real life testimonials and face our fears, no matter how uncomfortable. I think for me, Ariel, something that you mentioned particularly, because my marriage has always been tied to my faith. It has always been tied to a value system to which I still subscribe to. And so not having, look at Carmela, so not having marriage would be me sort of navigating through and having to really get over, theoretically, that I would have to get over that would not be my life. But I'm also the same person who realizes that my greatest accomplishment is not being someone's husband. It is not being someone's father. While those are amazing things, those are exceptional things, but my psyche first has always been my first thing. That is my first priority. It is absolutely. It is my love back to the Lord of meeting my destination. The being a husband and being a father, those are my additive things that come as a result of divine obedience, if that's what you want. So for me, it's like I would want to find purpose in my service. I would want to find purpose in knowing that I am making a difference, in the lives of not only just my, close family, but people abroad. And I think we have to do a switch on where we place our values at. You can have shared values, so you can apply the same pressure to marriage as you would to wanting to hike. It's whatever you define as of great importance to you. And for me, when I retraced my steps, I was able to say, like, okay, this was something that I heard, maybe that I saw. These were a set of ideals that were kind of given to me, and I had to kind of explore if they were sort of tilted in the soils of my heart, and not just something that I was just handed because it was just tradition, or if it was something that I've been indoctrinated to accept. Now, for me, it is something that I do want in the long run. However, be it, I think what I have tried to do in these days of my life, where I am exploring myself and I'm learning so much about myself, is that I've been realistic about my life and what it could be, and I've been comfortable with exploring the outcomes of no marriage. I've been comfortable with exploring the idea of marriage, what that looks like. And I've been having constant affiliations with those concepts and ideas because I want to see where my mind goes. I want to see if my heart skips a beat. I want to see if I can actually deal with, mourning the fact that I may not be married, or I may not, have children, or maybe I will, etc.
Right.
But understanding that even in those things of having to mourn the loss of those ideas, I still have life to live, and my life is still purposeful. And I think when we start to really reconcile how someone sees you, how valuable you are intrinsically, mutually exclusive of your career, your car, how much money you got in the bank. When you really start to be made manifest in your value, and how you can touch people and permeate love and thoughtfulness into people, then that is how you really start to live. Because there are people who are not married and they are extremely joyful. You know what I mean? Not just happy, because happiness can represent a state of emotion, and emotion is temporal, but just this joy of knowing that like I'm living. You know what I mean? So I think that would be where I am, Ariel.
Yeah. And I think, a part of where I am also is just that, like, and I've been telling some of my girlfriends who I'm in like a book club with, that I've just gotten tired of like trying to wait on other individuals, whether it be friends or significant other. Because a lot of times, some of my great girlfriends, they want to do things. They have thoughts of plans, but it's always tied to when I get married, I plan to X, Y, and Z. Or when I find a man, I plan to X, Y, and Z. And it's like, you know what? The mindset and the shift that I've been in over the last few months has really been like, no, I can actually go out and do that now. Like, I can go look up horseback riding. I can go look up hot air ballooning. I can go look up doing other activities, whether it's jet skiing, scuba diving certification, or whatever, just like really trying different things to really just kind of give myself a space of fun. And whether or not my friends can go or not, it's okay. I know I have been talking to a couple of my friends, and I was like, I found this solo travel site, and I think I want to try it out. And so, like, one of the ideas, I'm not sure if I'm going to do it, but one of the ideas that I do have is like bringing in the new year in another country and possibly doing something like that. And again, like, my friends are in full support of it, and no one's salty, like, okay, well, why don't you invite me to go? And it's like, well, no, I've just come to this space of really just like doing things and not necessarily waiting for a friend to become available, like going out and waiting for a friend to become available, or looking up activities and being like, well, can you come with me? Like, no, I can be my own plus one. And it doesn't have to be a sad or pitiful situation. It's just, I decided to try it. I decided to come, and I can turn on a bubbly personality and introduce myself to new people and have a fantastic experience all on its own. So I think too, just to add to that, is like, of what I'm learning is that, I did have thoughts of, when I get into a relationship, me and my significant other, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. And it's like, well, what if your significant other doesn't want to do that? Or what if they can't, like, they physically can't, they're not able to, then what? But you still want to try it, or you still want to do it. And so now you're salty with this individual, or they just have a completely freakish phobia of whatever it is that you want to try. Then it's like, okay, either in my mind previously, it was like, well, then I either got to grab some friends. But now it's just like, well, no, I can just go try it on my own. I can go to a gun range and try that by myself. I could take a hike. Well, you gotta be careful about those hikes. Find a hiking group that goes on hikes. But essentially, yeah, still going into these different experiences and whatnot solo, and being okay with showing up solo, and still, again, having a really fulfilled life, or finding what it is that I want to do. Like, I can still find community service opportunities. I can still find opportunities to speak to young people. I can still find opportunities to really share my heart and my talents, and the things that I'm passionate about. And that doesn't have to wait on a partner.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's very methodical, and just not waiting for anybody. Living life on purpose is a thing. We realized last year, guys are like losing over, I think the combination of like 600,000 people here in this.
And the numbers are still climbing. We still have multiple mutated strands that are out now. Before a vaccine was even given, we had at least 2, and
I think experience and even personal loss, you know what I mean? Has taught me, like, living your truth. You know what I mean? Like, live in your truth, because it is yours to live in. I think when it is time to present this concept to a generation of people, how do we uphold the tenets of marriage if we believe in them? But how do we also empower specifically women to not feel debased when they see, housewives, or when they see people who may, have what appears to be an amazing, wedding or an amazing marriage life. You know what I mean? I have so many different ideas about how we can empower little girls, because again, marriage is a beautiful thing. I am a huge proponent of marriage. I believe in marriage. I believe in the sanctity of marriage. Those are the things that I subscribe to. But I also don't want, my daughter chasing the idea that if she doesn't get married, that her life is not purposeful. You know what I mean? And so I think there is a lot of reconciliation that we have to do in the way that we set up the next generation, and the way that we empower each other, Ariel, so that we can say, like, hey, if God intended for you to be married, you would. His will is perfect. You know what I mean? Not to put on my preacher hat today, because but we know that His will is perfect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And whatever faith you subscribe to, you just have to understand that life is not about, you cannot fold into, like, sort of the concepts of other people. And when I say fold, I'm talking about, because it doesn't look like what you may be afraid of what you see, but you're the only one who sees it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Sometimes we are afraid of, like, I don't want this. You know what I mean? I'll never forget when I was able to one of my faith leaders asked me, he's like, you're called to do this. And I told him to his face, I was like, but I don't want to. You know what I mean? And this is someone who's like, he's a spiritual father to me. If I call his name, people would know, he's someone who I have, studied under, etc. But I was standing in my truth, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that's the empowerment.
And it's yours to stand in.
It's mine to stand in. And that's the empowerment that I would like to see more people have.
Yeah, I think I started on this journey, if I'm being quite honest, sometime around February or March of last year. I had just gotten out of a breakup with a guy who I really couldn't see myself with, in terms of like he looked great on paper and I could add to what he had and it would have been nice. But it didn't work out. And it's okay because we're still friends, or what have you, and still cordial. But I want to say I started in this journey of like, just working through singleness, working through triggers. What is it, and just asking the hard questions that we don't necessarily ask ourselves when we are single. But one of the things that really just kind of helped me walk through was to see other women who were empowered to really just kind of live on purpose and live their lives fully, and they're not married. And there was a conversation that I still go to this day. It's a YouTube conversation, or it's on YouTube, but it's a conversation between Oprah Winfrey and Tracy Ellis Ross. Two powerful women, both not married, both still have fulfilling lives and still present the need to help other individuals, but they had a powerful conversation about not being married. And Oprah actually said something of like, because she and Stedman have been together, but she knew what his expectations were of a wife, and she knew that she couldn't be that, with everything in her heart that she wanted to do, that she had purpose to do. And she knew that if she walked down the aisle, if she put on that ring, if she put on that dress, if she had her dream wedding, the expectations of how he would need her to present herself as a wife, she would not be able to meet those expectations. And so she was like, and it was something that was very profound. She said, I just wanted to know that I was worthy of being asked. And I was like, oh my goodness. And she told the story of how she had her dream wedding already mapped out, her dress, it was horse and carriage, the wedding song that she was gonna play at her wedding. And she said, I gave that dream wedding to a friend. And I was like, oh, wow. And then to hear Tracy Ellis Ross talk about how, one night she was getting ready to go to the Emmys. She had on this beautiful couture white dress. And she was like, this is my wedding night to myself. This is how, I will get that fulfillment of like a wedding dress, a wedding night, or what have you. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, and the conversation between the two is not that being married means that you are remiss of having companionship or love. Mm-hmm. Just that you don't have the license and no one's asked, and that's okay. And so just having that as like a conversation, because I've grown up in church as well. The foundation is that, there is a sanctity of marriage, and, husband and a wife, they come together and they be fruitful and they multiply, amen. Mm-hmm. And that's it. But again, if it is something where like marriage is not there, but I still want companionship, there is a draw there. There is a rift in that. And not to say that you go against the commands in scripture, and not to say that you go against what is written in scripture, but I feel like there is a way to feel companionship. There is a way to still know love and still feel fulfilled and still not be married. Like, just my thoughts. But to go back to what you were saying of like how to empower women, I think the empowerment is to actually show representation of it. Like, there are other ways to become pregnant with purpose. There are other ways to give yourself a dream wedding, to know that you're worthy of committing to. And it doesn't have to be by way of a man proposing. It can actually be by way of you committing to your purpose, you taking time to clear your thoughts in your mind, you taking time to pray and seek the Lord about what he would have you to do, and then get busy about doing that. And who's to say that you won't find that? But even if it is something where you don't find companionship by way of a ring and a nice ceremony and a few I do's, there's still fulfillment in knowing that what you are doing counts and it matters in someone else's life.
Yeah, I think that's very important. How do we kind of, because there is another side of that argument, that people say that those types of conversations are sort of, they are reductive to, marriage, in the sense that women sometimes feel, going back to, what you mentioned about Oprah, how she felt like she knew what Stedman's expectations were of her, which I don't know, but, and kind of correlating that with, I'm sure there's respect and love there, you know what I mean? But also sort of quantifying that against, well, we're together, it's just a piece of paper, it would only be recognized, by the state. How do we kind of guide people through those conversations to what you just mentioned, where people feel like that's reductive and it's lessening the value? Or do you see that as lessening the value of marriage by sort of hearing people kind of say that, well, I just want to do me? Is that like selfishness?
I think there is a level of selfishness to that, but you are entitled to that because that's your business, AKA Tabitha Brown. I am a firm believer of being a part of Mind Your Business Ministries, of slicking your edges and drinking your water and minding your business. I do believe in that. And there is a level of selfishness that goes along with that. But if you are genuinely in a space where you're like, I am not ready for this, I don't know if I'm up for the challenge.
Yeah.
Something that you say about living in your truth. Be okay with that being your truth, but also be honest with the person that you're with and let them know, like, this is my truth. Like, I'm terrified to commit in this way. I do not feel comfortable. I'm comfortable in this space right here. And I don't know when I will be comfortable past this space or if I will ever get there. Now, it's your decision if you decide that you're going to continue to rock with me, or should you decide to leave? Like, that's a hard conversation to have, but I think it's necessary, because if you have someone who's sitting here and she's nagging about, I want to be married, I want to be married, I want to be married, and it terrifies you, at some point you're going to have that rift of a conversation, and it's either going to go, okay, well, we got to split, or either you need to get some help. If you know that you don't want to lose this woman, you need to figure out some help. Go talk to your therapist or whatnot, and figure out, like, okay, so what is this triggering me that I can't get to this point? Or if you're just like, you don't want to be with her, or it's something where you don't even know, you got to be honest about it. Yeah. But I will say, to the whole process of marriage is just a piece of paper. It doesn't mean anything. Money is paper. A deed to a house is a piece of paper. I'm not one that subscribes to that, because there are other valuable pieces of documentation that's on a piece of paper. So to belittle the marriage document just to say that it is, kill that noise. Kill it. Don't come to me with it. I want to hear it, because I don't subscribe. I just don't. However, I feel very much so different about that. I mean, and again, it could be that your perspective and from your lived experiences, you have grown up with that understanding, and you may not have seen a healthy marriage or a healthy couple that has gotten married. And so if that is your perception, and if you've heard that rhetoric all your life, and if that is what you subscribe to, okay. But again, para mí, I cannot do. I cannot do. Yeah. But at the same time, like, I think it's just more so of like, you don't have to belittle the sanctity of marriage for someone else, especially if that is their perspective and if that is their perception. So
yeah, I agree with you. I think that's where it is. Like you said, Ariel, you know, none of us can choose that life for each other, which is why we are not screaming at y'all, but telling y'all, like, live your truth. You know what I mean? You are smart, you're intelligent, and if you're not, get around some smart, intelligent people. Take a minute to sit quietly, figure out what's going through your thoughts and where they come from, because every thought may not belong to you. They may not be yours. It may be someone else's, and you will be so certainly unhappy. And that's all across the board. But what you should do for your career, you know, where you should live, like all those things. Exercise some independence. It's okay to consult with people, but at the end of the day, you need to know yourself. You need to be extremely comfortable with your thoughts, because that's a typology for your life. You won't always have this person. You know, when I got released, essentially, I moved out, and I kind of started doing things, even when I relocated to a different state, because it's something like, Ariel, moving to a different state that just kind of keeps you, you know, you just have to trust, for one, my faith, and then, you know, trusting that I can make best decisions for myself. And I'll never forget how terrifying that was for me, you know, because at that moment I was like, I really have to make these decisions on my own. And it became less about, you know, sort of the auspices of the people who I had grown up with, and my leaders and my parents and my godparents and those figures that I held high, and more about what I wanted to do across the board. And it grew me up like exponentially fast. And so I think that that's important. And we want you all to continue to practice that. Not something overnight. We're not telling you not to get married. We're not telling you what to do. We're just telling you all how we would kind of navigate through those concepts, because we do want to be realistic. This is a time to, you know, to be as truthful with yourself as you can be. And who better to do it than yours truly, you know? Who better to do it than us? But we love y'all. Y'all know we got to get up out of here. It was so exciting coming back. We promise we're going to be dropping videos at least once a week. Try to get back in the swing of things now that I'm back home, and even though I will be traveling again quite soon, but we're going to make sure that we make it happen for you all. We love y'all on purpose. Until we meet again, peace out. Love you.